All right, it's gonna be a fun one. We're gonna do we're gonna do a little bit of lecture of just talk about breathing and why it's important, and then we're gonna go through some of the breathing training protocols. So I'll actually facilitate them, and we'll go through them. Then we'll do some Q&A, possibly along the way, but at the end, for sure, we'll get that in. For those of you who don't know who I am or haven't seen me on any of the mountains yet, I'm Dr. Trisha Smith. I'm a former sports chiro turned lifestyle clinician. I have a practice called Expand Your Human, where I really focus on how we can leverage our own biology to become the most optimal versions of ourselves, and just learning about how we can really affect our internal environment more than we ever believed before. And obviously breathing is one of the biggest things that I teach, also leveraging stress and sleep. But I'm essentially your breathing coach for 29029. I also speak at the BYLR camp, which is very fun. So I come at breathing from a very diverse background with many different techniques. So there's not just one technique. I used it with patients originally, over a decade ago, and have developed and taken many other certifications. I'm one of the lead instructors for Wim Hof method. So usually at BYLR get to incorporate the ice baths as well, which is fun. So it's just a little bit about me. Today, again, we're going to go through a little bit of slides. Then we'll do some facilitation through the breath training. Just for, I know some of you don't have your cameras on, but even if you hit the little, you can put your little hand up. Who has got this last year? I know we all lost a year on our lives. Who actually got this last year and has been using it? Either raise your hand or put your little hand up on your screen if you know how to do that. Okay, Holly, I see you. So not too many. So we've got a lot of new people. All right. Holly, have you been using the training?
Yes, I found it to be one of the most beneficial things that I learned in last year's training. So it's been great. I actually I sent you a Facebook message a while ago about using it in a very stressful situation at work. And like it's just gone beyond the training that we've had for 29029 and has infiltrated other areas of my life. It's so great.
Awesome. Thank you. That was not a paid promotion, by the way. But it will, and that's what I want, right? With anything I teach, I don't want it to just be what I call edutainment, but to actually be able to apply it, and not only on the mountain, but in your everyday life, which is great. So, and I apologize, I am never on Facebook, and I kind of got off all social media in the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. So send me an email and I will get back to you. All right, let's get going. I'm going to share my screen here while we go through just a little bit of our breathing overview. All right, so breathing obviously is one of our most important vital elements, along with food and water. We spend a lot of time on our quantities and qualities of our water and food, but we don't think too much about the most important thing, oxygen. Breathing Obviously helps us bring oxygen throughout our entire body. Oxygen is what creates our energy. So the more oxygen, the more efficient we can breathe, especially during exercise, the more efficient we can produce our energy, which is called ATP, right? So this is what's called our mitochondria. This is in all of our cells, and this is what produces our energy. So we take in our food, fats, carbs, proteins. We need oxygen in order to make this reaction happen, in order to create ATP, at least the most efficient way. Right? And energy is the name of the game in this mountain climbing, right? Energy, conserving our energy. We have to be able to do this over a very, very long period of time. So energy is the name of the game. And breathing is one way that we can conserve. And the way we breathe can also help us conserve energy, right? And think about this, our brain, our mind uses a ton of energy. So the more we can get out of our own way through our mind, and the fastest way to do that is to link up to our breath. So not spending any extra energy. Obviously, you'll be on the mountain. There'll be times where, you're on there like, man, why did I sign up for this? I don't know if I'm going to make it. There'll be times where you're like, man, this is awesome, right? So a great way to use the breath on the mountain, which we'll talk about, is to just drop into the breath and put your mind on it to get you where your feet are, as Jesse always says, right? Be where your feet are. And that will help you climb that mountain. So using the breath to get you planted, to get you grounded, and to get you into the present moment. Now we can also use our breathing to either put us into a more action state, we need more energy, or to help us recover. We talk about in the training ways that we can do this. When we're going down the gondola, we want to be able to recover ourselves so we're ready to go that next lap, just as if we started fresh, right? So a quick anatomy lesson in breathing. I think this is really important to actually see how we breathe. Meet your diaphragm if you've never met it before. This is actually your most important muscle in your body. It's not your hamstring or your bicep. This is your breathing muscle. It moves the lungs. The lungs don't have their own muscles to be able to expand, to bring air in. So this is essentially the motor to your lungs, right? So you need this motor in order to increase your lung capacity, therefore bringing in air. So we'll talk about this and how it's something, especially being able to see it inside your body and visualize it when you're going through this breath training and even when you're on the mountain. So just a quick lesson in how do we breathe? What happens? So if we start on the left there, we want to inhale, okay? In order to inhale, we need to expand our lungs. In order to expand our lungs, our diaphragm, which is that parachute, is going to flatten out. So remember, the lungs are attached to the top of that parachute. Diaphragm contracts, flattening out, expanding the lungs, air comes in, right? It's just, think of the lungs as a vacuum. When I increase the volume of my lungs, I have more space. Therefore, the pressure is lower in my lungs than it is in the atmosphere. So I have the motor drops down, increases my lungs, and a vacuum just brings in the air. Okay. Now on the exhale, it's pretty much just a passive action that's happening, right? Unless I'm breathing out my air purposely. If I'm just sitting here breathing normally, my exhale, my diaphragm just relaxes. It's going to return to that dome shape and the lungs returning to their original shape, right? So it's pretty much just a passive thing that's happening. We're not actually contracting anything. So very basic, but knowing and being able to visualize mechanically what's happening, because the biomechanics of your breathing is very important in order to create energy more efficiently and breathe more efficiently. All right, so we talked about how we can use our breathing to either put us into a more action state or calm us down, right, into a more recovered rest state. So we have two divisions of what is called our autonomic nervous system. Autonomic simply just means automatic. It happens right behind the scenes, but it doesn't mean we can't actually influence it. So we have these two divisions. We have our sympathetic, which a lot of people are now relating that to like stress and it's bad and it's a negative thing. Sympathetic is amazing, right? That's our action state. Okay. We need that, especially to move up a mountain, right? Then our other division is called the parasympathetic. That's people refer to as rest and digest. That's where we're going to get recovery. Our food's going to digest. Okay. So our brain is going to communicate with our diaphragm in order to put us in one of these states, right? If you're stressed out, your body is going to say, okay, breathe faster, right? You're stressed out, say, even just running, your heart's going to beat faster. Okay, so the brain is going to automatically tell the diaphragm to breathe faster or breathe slower, depending on what it needs. Now, what's cool about this is our diaphragm is our only muscle inside of our torso here that is made of skeletal muscle. So essentially the same muscle as your biceps, your hamstrings, your quads, that we can actually control. All of the other things inside of our torso, our organs and our heart are made up of smooth muscle and cardiac muscle, things that we can't control. The diaphragm, we can. So our brain's either going to put us in one of these states, or we can, depending on the way we're breathing, if we're breathing faster, we're going to drive ourselves into a more action state. If we're breathing slower, we're going to drive ourselves into more of a recovery state, a calm state. So pretty cool. This is just something I did. I had my Garmin watch on. I was doing my Wim Hof method breathing, and I wanted to see just by breathing what an impact that could have on my heart rate. So if you don't know, Wim Hof involves some pretty deep breaths that are much faster than if we were to just breathe normally. So that's what that 1, 2, and 3 in the yellow and the red spikes. Okay, so I go through rounds of breathing where I'm breathing faster, deeper, and then I go into a breath hold where that peak drops off. Then again, breathing faster, deeper, heart rate goes up to almost 90 beats per minute just from breathing. So you can see the change and how just my speed of breathing or my breath holds are going to affect my heart rate. Okay. Then I went through my breathing. I usually do my meditation afterwards. Heart rate should be nice and low. And then my dog started barking. And I was like, oh man, this is going to mess up my heart rate, my cool heart rate diagram to show. And then I'm like, wow, this is really cool, right? So I had to sit up and I had to yell at my dog to stop barking. And you can see that spike in the heart rate, right? Which my body did automatically. 1, 2, and 3, I did just by breathing. So we have a major influence on the tempo that we breathe, the depth that we breathe, on how that directly affects our nervous system. Now, this is really cool. So besides increasing and decreasing our heart rate with the speed, if we focus on our inhale or our exhale more, either by length or depth, I can also increase or decrease my heart rate. When you inhale, your heart rate speeds up. When you exhale, your heart rate slows down. And it's simply by creating more space in the heart when I'm breathing in. So as I'm breathing in, remember that parachute diaphragm flattens out. My heart sits right above that diaphragm. So it's going to actually create more space. So your heart actually gets bigger every inhale. Now, if my heart's bigger, there's blood flow running through it. That blood flow is going to slow down. It's going to trigger my brain to say, okay, speed up your heart rate because I need to speed up that blood flow because now I have a bigger volume to go through. Then when I exhale, when it returns to its position, the heart is going to get smaller. And now the blood flow is going to speed up inside of there. Again, it's going to trigger my brain, say, okay, slow down your heart rate so I can come back to baseline. So this is really cool. This is an MRI of somebody in there just breathing. So you can see the heart beating. You see below the black on the sides are our lungs. And then below that, you can see our liver, all of our other organs. The diaphragm is that sheet that's sitting over that liver and right below the heart. So again, heart's beating, you're breathing in here, breathing out. Now watch this, big breath in. See how the heart speeds up? Breathing out, heart slows down. Pretty cool, one more time. Little breath in, you can see the lungs expand. Breath out, big breath in, lungs expand. And breath out. Pretty cool. So if you're focusing on your inhale, your heart rate's going to speed up. If you're focusing on your exhale, your heart rate is going to slow down. Pretty cool stuff. So we can manipulate all this and steer our nervous system, steer our energy wherever we want it to go. One thing that's always asked, of course, is breathing in through the nose or the mouth. More and more research is coming in. There's an excellent book called Breath by James Nestor, who really dove into nose breathing and how literally the shape of our face and our bones have changed over the recent years because we're becoming more mouth breathers, which is not a good thing. So nose breathing is very important. It's very important for us to do throughout our day as much as we can, also when we're sleeping. The nose is a direct line with our respiratory system. Our mouth, we can breathe with our mouth, but our mouth was really given to us to breathe in more sympathetic, in more action state. Okay? When you get to that point where you're working out and your mouth drops open, what your body's doing is breathing off carbon dioxide faster. Okay, it needs to blow that off. But as we're sitting around all day, in the beginning of our training, we should always be breathing through our nose. Our nose filters the air from particles, bacteria. It also spins around these little guys inside of here, and it conditions the air, making it nice for the lungs to receive. It traps moisture and heat. So it will cool or heat the air depending on what your core body temperature is. Okay, so it could be very important, especially in Utah. So we'll talk about some other ways we can help control and regulate our temperature, which is very important for endurance. So breathing through your nose will help with that. We also have inside of our sinuses around our nose, we have a very important gas called nitric oxide, which is a powerful vasodilator. So it opens up our blood vessels, it opens up our airways, it opens up parts of your lung so that you get better oxygen exchange in your lungs. So we have this nasal nitric oxide, and when you breathe in through the nose, this gas just joins the air and it goes in and it helps, again, open up your airways and get good, better oxygen uptake. So all these things, it's very, very important. The first training you can do with any of this is to just simply be aware of your breath throughout the day. Even if you set an alarm on your phone, when your breath, if you wear an Apple Watch and the little breath thing comes up to remind you to breathe, ask if you're breathing in through your nose, right? Breathing out through your nose as much as you can as well. We'll talk about that when we put it into the training. But just the first step of this breath training, if you're not doing it already, nose breathing will change your life. It will change your sleep. It will change your focus and attention, your productivity. So start there and be a good nose breather. One reason why breathing in your nose helps is, actually, let's just do this. Take a breath in through your mouth. Another one. Now breathe in through your nose. Another one in through the nose. So there's a big difference there, right? Through the mouth, I don't have any interference. I just have this big hole. The air just comes in. Through my nose, it's tough. I have this little hole. And then, like I said, the air has to spin around these little things called turbinates. So that pressure is going to allow me to use my diaphragm better, to be a better breather because of that pressure. Right? It also is going to help me expand my lungs fully from top to bottom, not just lifting my shoulders up and breathing in through my mouth. And now I'm only getting air exchange up in this top called your apical area of your lungs, right? So if we watch this, so this is more of a mouth breathe. I like to call it more shoulder breathing than chest breathing. Chest breathing isn't bad as long as you can do it to where your shoulders aren't coming up, right? So this is a rough animation, obviously, and now on the right, we have, this is really good diaphragm breathing. I'm getting better expansion of my lungs, getting further expansion with that diaphragm going down. Now, this is important too, because the lungs, think of them as upside down trees, right? And the leaves and the stems are where I'm getting better oxygen exchange. And that's actually towards the bottom of the lungs. We also have gravity. So gravity, the better blood flow through the lungs is actually going to be towards the bottom through the gravity. So every breath we take, we want it to be much better, much lower, so I can get that full expansion. All right. Stop sharing this. We're going to get into some of the training. Any questions so far? Just go ahead and unmute, Liz.
Hey Trisha, I'm wondering, so I'm a consistent meditator and you do pranayama. Is there some similarity between what you're going to teach where that will help me with some of these exercises and climbing the mountain?
Yes. Yes. All right. And with breathing, just like anything else, movement, do different techniques, right? Different techniques are going to give you different results, different goals you're going to work for. And they're all going to help you. In the end, we want to keep our full lung capacity, right? As we get older, we actually start losing that, especially if we're not using it. Our diaphragm, the same way. Our diaphragm, a muscle that we should be keeping its full range of motion to keep it healthy. All right. Any other questions? Was that an easy way to understand breathing and kind of get a good view on what's happening underneath the hood? All right. Okay. So let's go through some of the breathing training. Now, if you're driving, obviously you don't want to be doing these, so you can watch the video later. So when I first drew this up, what I said there at the beginning, start by adding just one block. So I was breaking these up into blocks so that I know you guys have a lot of other stuff that you're training in your nutrition. There's a lot of stuff happening. So don't think about you have to pile all of this stuff on top of everything else, right? Even if you just practiced your nose breathing before you went, and I will actually be in both the Utahs. So we'll do a little bit of stuff before we even climb the mountain the day before. So if anything you get out of this, nose breathing. Okay. So breathing mobility. So it's important for us to move around our thoracic cage. Our thoracic cage are our ribs, our spine. And we want to keep those nice and mobile because even if our diaphragm moves well, but our ribs are just totally locked down, that's not going to help us with the expansion of our lungs, right? We need mobility in our ribs in order to expand, in order to make that space for the lungs, okay? So moving our spine is important and our ribs around. Let's do a couple of those right now. So I put a spinal waves in there. You could do kind of like a cat-cow, but let's do one standing. So let's go standing. We'll just do a few. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my upper body over my lower body, forwards and backwards. Okay, the easiest way to do this is squeeze your butt, tuck your tailbone under, put your fingers on your breastbone. Then I want you to stick your chest out into your fingers and then round the back and move away from your fingers. In, breath in, out, away from the fingers, breath out. In. Now your arms are going to move back and forth just naturally, but I don't want you moving your arms around your body. Move your body around your arms, right? In and out. Make sure you're breathing. When we do hard things, we hold our breath, right? We make it harder. Smiling also helps to make it easier. Yes. Good. Okay. Now we're going to move our upper body side to side over our lower body. So same thing, you're going to squeeze the butt, tuck the tailbone, take the fingers, put them both on your breastbone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide, reaching through my elbow, moving my upper body over my lower body. And try not to teapot. Keep the shoulders square. Really reach. And don't worry if you're not good at this, because my most favorite quote is from one of my mentors. Whatever you're doing right now, you're getting better at. Always remember that, right? So as long as you're doing it, you'll get better at it. If you're not doing it, you're not going to get better at moving your spine. And they say, there's a saying, you're only as old as your spine. Good. Okay, so now we got front and side. So now we're going to do a little circle. So squeeze the butt, tuck the tailbone. Chest is going to come out front, and then the chest is going to go to the right. Then it's going to come around the back. Left, front, right, back, left, front. Let's reverse it. Left, around the back, right, front, left, back, right, front. Good. Reverse it. Now just kind of loosen stuff up. You can even let the butt go and just try to create some motion in your ribs, in your spine. Look silly. Good. Go the other way. One thing we worry about too much, what other people think of us. I like being weird. I'll do that in the standing in line at the grocery store or something. All right, good. So now we got our spine. Let's do a little bit on our ribs. So taking our hands, essentially you're going to kind of cup around the sides of your ribs there. Rotate to the right and actually kind of drive your rib cage with you. Turn your head, turn your eyes. And left. Rotate left. Anyone get any pops, clicks? Little free adjustments on yourself? Good. All right, straight ahead. Now we're going to do a little brain trick. So what you're going to do is you're going to rotate your torso to the right, and you're going to try to pull your rib cage to the left. So you're going to go right with the torso and try to drive the ribs the opposite direction. So you feel a little shearing. Make sure you're breathing. Good. Other way. Torso goes left, ribs go right. Good. And straight ahead. The tricky one on the brain. All right. So now we got a little motion in our rib cage. Let's go seated. So you can do this stuff seated or lying down once you do it. If it's easier just to do it seated right now, just to be able to feel as we walk through. So I like to get some motion again in our torso. Now we're going to get a little release on our diaphragm. So remember, our diaphragm is that parachute, and it attaches onto our lower 6 ribs on the inside, right? So I call this monkey fingers. So I'm literally going to take my fingers, walk down your breastbone until there's a spot where your fingers just will naturally fall in, right? There's a point on our breastbone called your xiphoid process. It might be a little tender if you don't have a relationship with your xiphoid. All right. So now my fingers can fit nicely kind of right up underneath my ribs. Now what I want you to do is take a breath in. Then on the exhale, you're going to try to follow that exhale as it creates space and reach up underneath the ribs with your fingers. Now, be gentle. It might be a little painful. It might be a little more tender on your right side because your liver is literally right there. Just give a little light massage, kind of feel what it feels like. on each side. When you breathe in, it's going to want to push your fingers out. Remember, the diaphragm's dropping down. It's literally squishing all of your guts. On the breath out, the diaphragm's coming up. So you'll be able to create a little space, kind of follow the rib cage around. Breathing. I also do this throughout my day. Make sure you're breathing. Sometimes on the inhale, I'll kind of try to pin the tissue, not allowing it to push my fingers out, right? Just start getting a little relationship and feeling like, okay, that's a diaphragm. That's the way it works. Pushes my fingers out. Getting a little release. So this is, again, going to help us. We want that diaphragm to have full motion, to come down and up. All right. So we got a little bit more space in there. So now what we're going to do is stretch the diaphragm. So how do we stretch the diaphragm? The diaphragm contracts when it goes down. So in order to stretch it, we want to exhale fully, and it'll actually come up. Okay, and that's how we stretch it. So what we're going to do, make sure everyone's seated at least. Again, if you're driving or anything, please don't do this. So everyone take a breath in through the nose. You can open the mouth, blow all of your air out. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. When you think it's all gone, spell your name quietly. When you need to, take a breath in, do another one. Just trying to breathe every last sip, visualizing that stretch, parachute coming up into the chest. We need to work this diaphragm. We need to stretch it. We need to build its strength, its endurance. Good. Everyone did a couple there. Right? Okay. So that's good, all good stuff for mobility. Moving the thoracic cage, getting a little space in the diaphragm, and then getting that good diaphragm stretch. Right? So now let's go into a couple breath patterns. One isn't on here, but I'll actually send it to you guys. This is one from Oxygen Advantage. I'm currently getting a master instructor certification through them, but it is a great exercise to help cool that nitric oxide and open up your airways much faster. Okay? So all we're going to do, it's going to look like this. You're going to take a normal breath. This is all nose, nose in, nose out. Okay. You're going to take a normal breath in. You're going to take a normal breath out. Then you're going to hold the nose, hold the breath for 5 seconds. And I'll be facilitating this and walking us through. Okay. So it'll be just a normal breath in through the nose, normal breath out through the nose, hold the breath for 5 seconds. I'll count that down. After the 5 seconds, you're going to let go in the nose. You're going to inhale through the nose. That's really important. We've cooled that nitric oxide. Now we want to pull it through down into the lungs. Okay. Okay. So just a few normal breaths. Just make sure it's going in and out of the nose right now. Also, make sure you're seated for this or lying down, not driving. Now just do a regular breath in and a regular breath out the nose. Good. Hold the nose, hold the breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let go of the nose. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. 10 seconds. I'll count it down. Bring us into the next hold. Good. On this next inhale and exhale. Hold the nose, hold the breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose, 10 seconds. Just normal breathing. Good. On this inhale and exhale. Hold the nose, hold the breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose, 10 seconds. Just normal, quiet breaths. And on this inhale and exhale, hold the nose, hold the breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, just back to normal breathing. Good. Now there you might felt a little bit of what's called air hunger when you're holding your breath, where you're like, this is a little stressful. Right? That's actually a good thing. And once we get into more advanced breathing with this, we'll actually train that. What's really important, especially with endurance, is not oxygen. Everyone talks about oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. It's actually CO2, carbon dioxide. So we breathe in oxygen, breathe off CO2. CO2 is given off, it's a byproduct of any energy that we use in our body, right? Us moving, chewing our gum, breathing, right? Any body processes going on, running, we obviously will create more CO2. But CO2 is really the biggest trigger for our breath. How many times we breathe. If we're holding our breath when our body says we need to breathe again, it's not, everyone thinks it's the oxygen, the drop in oxygen. It's actually the buildup of CO2. So a key to building endurance is to get your body to deal with CO2 longer, to build up your CO2 resilience. Then your breath can be slower. You'll have less breaths, which is making you more efficient, right? And it's allowing you to create energy more efficiently. Right? So CO2 is really important. So even just doing these small little breath holds will help us train and build up our CO2 tolerance. So really important. Okay, so we have our nose hold breath holds, which again helps pool that nitric oxide, helps us open up our airways, also helps us for getting a little bit more CO2 tolerant. Now let's go into a couple breath patterns. So we can do it just seated. Let's go into putting your hands, let's go hands on the lower ribs. And really without changing anything, just breathe however your natural pattern is, and just kind of feel where your breath is. Let's go right hand belly, left hand chest. Same thing, if you need to close your eyes, you can close your eyes if that's uncomfortable. Just bring your awareness to your breath. See if you can feel under which hand is there movement. You're breathing in through your nose or your mouth. Now bringing the hands back down to those lower ribs on the outside. You can either go straight down or cross over, whatever's more comfortable. Now breathing in through the nose. I want you to think about breathing into that lower back. Breathing into the abdomen, but breathing into the hands so you're breathing more horizontally. Not just sticking the belly out front, but think about breathing into your sides. On the breath in, you should feel expansion, rotating, your ribs rotating up. On the exhale, the ribs rotating down. Inhaling in the nose. How are those ribs moving? Really spending some time directing this during the day before your training. Good. Now moving the hands again back to right hand belly, left hand chest. Now you're going to breathe in through the nose. Think about start the breath deep between the hips and your pelvis, and then stacking the air on top into the chest. And a relaxed exhale. Breathing in through the nose, belly, chest, exhale. If you start getting a little lightheaded, just slow the breathing down. You could even go into a little bit of a breath hold. Here, we're just trying to train a good breathing pattern using the diaphragm, building the strength and endurance of the diaphragm. After this next breath in and breath out, go into a breath hold, hold the breath. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And inhale through the nose. Good. And just back to normal breathing. You can relax the hands. All right. So we went through some mobility, open things up. We went through getting that nitric oxide, some target breathing, what I like to call, so we can really direct that breath and build those good patterns. Breathing is like a walking pattern, and it'll get shorter and more efficient, which is not necessarily a good thing, right? Especially if you're sitting at a desk all day. So we want to make sure we retrain and get those good patterns. All right. So we went through those. Then the stuff as far as with training, we'll just talk about them. Syncing up the breath with movement. So this, another word for this is called resonance. When our body's in resonance, when our breath is like at the same rate of our heartbeat, we are much more efficient. We save energy. So playing around when you're doing your training, it's easiest to do when you're walking first. You can do this eventually when you're, running, when you're climbing mountains. So however many steps, so it may be, say, an inhale, 2 steps, exhale, 2 steps. Right? So just building up, think, okay, I want to sync up my heart rate to my breathing. Boom. So you have to play around with that depending on obviously your pace, your stride, all of those things. And this is something good to not to have music going, but actually just being present with your training and your breath, right? Then we talked a lot about how we can, if we speed up our breathing, we're going to increase our heart rate. If we slow down our breathing, we're going to decrease our heart rate. So there's times we're going to want to speed it up, right? Depending on where we are at the mountain, if we're at the very top and we need to push through to get to the top of the hill, and then we want to, boom, be able to calm ourselves right back down, right? So easy, obviously, to speed it up. We just speed up your breathing. For the downshift, there's a couple different things you can use and play around with what works for you, okay? So say I get to the top, I know the parts in Utah that are tough. Once you get to that, through that one section, you need to recover. So you're out of breath, right? You're going to go either just focus on the exhale. So you're going to make the exhale longer than your inhale, right? So if you do it just now, if say you breathe in 3 seconds, breathe out 6 seconds, in 3, out 6. Good. Even just now, I mean, you can decrease your heart rate really fast. Okay. There's a new one that Dr. Andrew Huberman, if you guys don't listen to, he actually has a podcast now, which is amazing. He put one out not too long ago on endurance. He's brilliant. He explains things. He's a neuroscientist, but he explains things in a very simple way. And I love him because he always gives practical takeaways. So it's not all just this fancy words. So it's called the physiological sigh. And what it is a double inhale, relaxed exhale. So it's just the inhale, inhale. And this so far is the fastest one that can decrease your heart rate. So this is also very handy in your daily life when you need to decrease, right? Stressed out, on the verge of maybe a little panic, boom. About to go have a tough conversation or speak in front of somebody, double inhale, exhale. And this is something that actually, when you think about, when you're crying and your body does this automatically to calm yourself down. But this is one, again, that's what's great about breathing, is that you can do it to influence your nervous system. All right. So we got focus on your exhales. We got the double inhale, exhale for recovery. And then one I actually got from free diving. So free diving, after they're down holding their breath for several minutes, they're what's called their recovery breath as soon as they come up is an inhale, hold 3 seconds, relaxed exhale. Inhale, hold 3 seconds, relaxed exhale. One more, inhale 3 seconds, exhale. So 3 times, inhale, hold. And obviously when you're out of breath, it's much harder to hold the breath there at the top, but also good to build our CO2 tolerance. I use this when I'm hiking and it can drop heart rate fast. Okay. Again, you just got to play with it a little bit. It might be uncomfortable. Go to just a 1 second hold, right? So play around with these 3 different ones that are going to downshift you, right? And see which one is most comfortable for you. Hopefully you have some kind of watch where you're watching your heart rate and really start playing around with it. All right. Then we have our post training. I know we're way over time, but I just get so excited about this stuff. I want to talk to you guys forever. So post training, what's important is that we recover, right? Stress is not a bad thing. Stress is how we grow, how we adapt, how we get better, but we need the up and then we need to be able to come down. That's what's important. So after training, especially if it's something like a HIIT workout, sprints, right? We want to recover our biochemistry. So we're going to do these 3-second inhales, 3-second exhales, inhaling through the mouth, or sorry, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, right? Go into the breath hold after about 10 breaths, or again, if you start getting lightheaded, okay? Anytime you're doing more consecutive breaths and a little bit faster, you could get a little lightheaded, okay? So make sure you're doing this. And one thing about these longer breath holds, if you have really bad anxiety, if you're pregnant, any medical conditions, you don't want to go into longer breath holds, all right? The 5-second ones, the very short ones are okay, but nothing longer, all right? So in that case, you're just going to go slowing down the breathing, okay? So we recover our biochemistry, and then we're going to do the ones we did earlier with 3 seconds inhale, 6 seconds exhale to recover our nervous system. Just decreasing the heart rate. All right. How we doing? Any questions? Chat box.
Hey, Trish,
Yes.
the name of the podcast and the quickest way to recover?
The breath is called the physiological sigh, and it's Dr. Andrew Huberman, Huberman. He's been on several people's, but now he has his own podcast. Hey, you find it? Did you find it, Tim?
I'm looking for it real quick.
Okay. There's one that's just all about endurance. I mean, he goes through like productivity, sleep, all the different things and how you can apply neuroscience. All right. Way to question, Laura. I experience exercise-induced headaches, especially if super hot. My heart rate is high. Yes. Lots of hydration always. Hydration is very important to keep your blood flow, your blood volume big. Using the nose breathing should help. I'm glad you actually brought up temperature, because temperature is a factor in Utah. And now with these heat waves, it might even be more of a factor. So one thing that actually Dr. Huberman talks about, heat is something that the body does not deal with and has a very serious survival mechanism for, which it will shut down your neurons, your brain cells, and they'll die. And those are actually ones that will not regenerate. So your body is very safe when it comes to heat. Little, short bouts in saunas and everything are very good, but, being out on the mountain all day long, that's tough. So, and that's also one thing that hurts or makes you stop whenever you're doing any kind of endurance is your body temperature. So trying to keep that body temperature low. Well, what are some ways we can do that? One, breathing, using our nose breathing, right? Because that's going to regulate temperature with the air coming in. But also the palms of our hands, our cheeks and our face, and the soles of our feet are like, I think of it as like radiators. And those are ways that we can actually affect our core body temperature. So practice this if you're in heat right now, or even during training. you can just use a sink with cool water. So the key is you don't want it freezing cold water. You want it just cool. And then you put your hands in, and it can actually decrease your core body temperature. Because when you work out, heart rate goes up and you start getting hot. And then when it's hot outside, your core body temperature is even going to rise even more. Okay. So, or you could put something cold on the cheeks, right? People will usually take it and put it around their necks. Doesn't really help too much. You want to use those surfaces, right? There's special surfaces that help us cool and heat much faster, right? So some little tricks with the heat there. So play around with this stuff, obviously, before you get out there, so you know how it works and if it helps you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I live in Boston, so we're at sea level, no altitude. And I went to Utah last year and then it got canceled, but we just took a vacation instead. And I ran and I could feel myself affected by the altitude. And I'm a little nervous about it. I'm training and my training's great, but I just remember that. Can this breathing help with that? Because I do have situations where my iron is low and I try to maintain it. So I'm just wondering if the breathing will also be helpful for that.
Yes, very good question. Especially any of the oxygen advantage. So if you look up, he's got a book out, and maybe we can do another training that actually might be good. Breath holds. So breath holds, especially with movement. So walking, running can actually simulate altitude training, which is pretty cool. So that's one way that you can help train for it. But also with the iron, that's very important, of course, to make sure you have it, but also the blood volume is very important as well. So that could be even possibly like what I have to do. I have to wear, compression socks. So I have less blood flow essentially has to go through my whole entire body. So hydration, very important. But yes, holding your breath while moving. Again, maybe we'll see if we can do another just specific altitude one.
Thank you so much. That was super helpful.
Yeah, you got it. Any other questions? All right. How did you call it? Para-hunger breathing. Para-hunger. A light hunger. So you want to get a light hunger for oxygen when you're holding your breath, and that's okay. But it shouldn't be too stressful, right? Nasal as much as you can. Yes, nasal as much as you can, even on the exhale while you're training. So think of it, Power Speed Endurance, who is now, what did they change their name to? Shift, I believe. They talk about going through. So you're going to start out your training nose, right? Everything should be nose in, nose out. Then once you start getting into it a little bit more, once you have to switch, you'll switch to nose and then mouth exhale. Okay. And then when eventually, if you need to, you're going to switch to mouth. But the more you can train inhaling through that nose, and trust me, if you feel like it's uncomfortable and you think, I'm not getting enough oxygen, you are actually getting more oxygen by breathing in through your nose than you are with your mouth. You just have to train it and get better at it. Right? But whatever you're doing right now, you're getting better. All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there. It was a longer one. I hope it was helpful. Again, breathing, just do the simplest changes and it's life changing. Like it's almost, you don't even believe it, but you don't need all this complicated, biohacking stuff. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, email me, Dr. Trisha Smith at gmail.com. I'm kind of renovating my website right now, so my website's not up. But feel free to reach out and hopefully I will see you. Who's going to be in Utah? Jesse, Utah. You must be going to Utah. Yes. Nice. All right. Sweet. Be fun. Gary, Emily. All right. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope that was helpful and some value. Use it in your everyday life, and I'll see you on the mountain.